Welcome to Astro Chat with Anne Sundell, Kimberly Williams, and Monica Anna. We are three professional astrologers living in three separate countries, coming together every new and full moon to share our 3 points of view on astrology. Whether you enjoy deep dives into the current transits or you are just beginning to learn about astrology for the first time, there is a place for you here. All that is required is an appreciation for astrology, along with a respect for the various traditions within it. So grab a mug of coffee, your favorite cup of tea, or any other beverage of your choice, and join us for a chat on the astrology of the next 2 weeks. Hey everybody, welcome back to another Astro Chat. This week it is myself, Kimberly Williams, and the wonderful, the illustrious, the amazing Anne Sundell. We're doing a update, a transit, astrology transit. This one's going to be raw and uncut. We are a little behind our timeline, so we're going to just go with this without editing and then upload it. So join in or pardon our laughter and little faux pas in advance. We're looking at the upcoming lunation for August 16th. That's going to be, I believe, at 4:37 a.m. here in central USA, 10:37 a.m. over in England, 12:37 over in Finland. And we're looking at the new moon, right? We're doing the new moon at 23 degrees of Leo, 23 degrees, 17 minutes, I think it is. And we're looking at both the lunation and then the 2 weeks following it before we have the next full moon on the 31st of the month. So settle in. Get ready to join us and get your favorite beverage, and we're gonna dive in. But first, and I didn't say to Anne beforehand we were going to do this, but first we need to take a moment and do a little celebration because Anne, I think your school has some huge, wonderful celebration happening this coming weekend. Do you want to tell us?
Yeah, we have actually the first students that are graduating right now, and the graduation will be next upcoming Sunday. So yeah, we have come to that point now that people have studied astrology, karmic and psychological astrology for 3 years, and they are actually ready now to go further from our school. It's very I mean, time goes so fast. You can't understand how fast 3 years just went by.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it feels amazing, really.
Well, it has to be exciting. And they're a wonderful group of people. I met a few of them when I was blessed to be able to give a workshop to some of your folks. And just an amazing group of people, so intelligent, so passionate. I'm sure they're going to go far and educate more of us about karmic astrology. So yay.
Yeah, I think so too.
Awesome. All right. Well, we gave you the timestamp, and we'll pull up the chart in a bit for those on YouTube who want to watch, or if you're listening on a podcast, you can pull it up on your own software. But the big thing in the chart is before the month is over, we'll have 6 planets have gone retrograde. That's a lot. So some of the things we're not going to mention probably are about like the outer planets, and some of those energies are important, but we've already mentioned them in the last 1 or 2 podcasts. So if you see something in the chart and you're like, hey, that stands out, or that is an important placement in my birth chart, go back and listen to any of those and see what comes to you. But we're going to try to focus a bit here, I think, on the lunation, on the Venus, the Mercury, Jupiter, that are the either in progress or upcoming. But first, before we dive in, let's take a moment to talk about the Sabian symbol. Very interesting this time.
Yeah, so I checked the Sabian symbol for Leo 24 degrees, and this time it's an untidy, unkept man. So the symbol is about not judging the book by its cover, and I think it also has to do with balancing things in your life, and maybe also with Leo new moon. I think with Leo, the sign of Leo, you can think a lot about status, about appearance, about, just what we see on the surface can also be one side of it, and to not get too fixed with that, but also our inner values, and something that's really, I think right now it's very important, and we have seen it collectively with retrograde Venus and also maybe in our own lives, that we are thinking about values and what is important, and not just to be too shallow, to also be able to dig deeper.
I like that. Being the resident Virgo here of our trio. Yeah, the untidy, unkempt. It's like the thing that I don't want to be seen, and I want to keep that hidden. And it's the thing. There's a lot of personal judgment around, especially my own untidiness. But with Leo being such a creative sign. I was just talking with a friend last night. We were talking about how she got in this creative burst of energy and started doing more jewelry making. And now the house is a disaster zone. Because you know how it is when you get creative, you start pulling things out, and I want this and I want that. And there's these. And so now there are like things that are open and things, everything that was nice and neat and contained is now everywhere. It is a very creative space, but a very untidy space. And there's kind of feels like almost that's something that happens if we're going to embrace that creative side of Leo, is we have to give ourselves permission for things to be a little untidy and just go with where the energy is taking us instead of judging how it needs to look on the outside. So I think that was I like that one. At first it threw me, but I like it. And the more I sit with it, I'm like, I think that is a really good reminder.
Yeah, and if some of you maybe did some renovation during this retrograde Venus, you maybe found some stuff you want to redo or remake or paint, or then you know how it's going to look after a while, when you're dealing with those kind of things. So, but then the result will maybe be it be worth the mess.
Absolutely worth it. Yeah. All right. Well, let's just popcorn back and forth a bit about Leo energy, especially a Leo new moon versus, the Leo sun sign, and kind of how do you work with this every year? What does it bring up for you when the moon is in Leo?
Well, when the moon is in Leo, it's my own moon, so it's and this new moon is really close to my natal moon. So yeah, I try to follow the inspiration and be creative, and also find some space for play, and to relax a bit, also to have a bit fun in the middle of, we're also a bit into Virgo season, so you have duties you need to do, but still, you find that in a child, and that fun, and you let yourself be a bit silly, and relax a bit like that.
Yeah. Yeah, the play is
Maybe cut
so
your hair
important.
too. Isn't it good with new moon in Leo to cut hair? I think
Yeah,
so.
it's a
I
great
can agree
time.
with, yeah.
It is a great time. I also think I like the fact that you mentioned that this is where your moon is placed, because I think when the new moon each year, when you have that point when the new moon is in the same sign that your natal moon is in, it's important. It is a beginning. It's like your own personal new moon in a way, right? It's activating that moon energy, and you're having the moon contact your moon, and it's a great time for visualizing what you want to come, and seeding, planting the seeds of all that inspiration. And I think with Leo, it's definitely about, genius sometimes comes in the form of play when
Yeah.
we're letting our hair down, to use a Leo term. Um, it's freeing. I think there's something about Leo that is very, very freeing. I often associate Leo with the Empress card in the tarot deck. It's that energy of just running wild, abandon, creativity, play. And what happens is abundance follows in its wake. So, yeah. And it makes sense that this is the time that, I mean, people start talking about vacation and family vacations when the sun is in Cancer, but often it actually happens, at least here in the States. It often happens once the sun has gone into Leo. Like August is that month of, well, school is going to be starting, work is going to be coming. Like you mentioned, Virgo season's right around the corner and duties await. So it's sort of that last hurrah that last burst of summer energy, of play, of fun. Let's travel, let's vacate, let's enjoy. Let's go maybe roll in the heat because it seems like you can't get away from the heat these days. But there's something about Leo that it's like my mother was a double Leo, and if anyone could make life a party, she could. She could take any minute little event and turn it into a party if she was of that mindset. There's just something, and it's contagious, right? That Leo energy, that charisma, it's from the heart. It's not all about what our mind has created. It's what our heart wants to do, and that love just flows. And I think that's part of the reason that Leos can be very you can get caught up in their energy. You know, their passion, their fire, if we're not paying attention, suddenly we're fired up about the same thing, whether they're having fun or whether they're angry, but it's like they're fired up and they're alive. And it's always, I think of Leo as the bright, blazing bonfire on the beach that you cannot help but see from a far distance, and you're drawn to it. You want to know what's going on. So yeah, it's definitely a lovely, lovely, warm, fun, playful, energizing time.
Yeah.
So, shall we dive in and talk about the actual lunation? Let me pull up the chart real quick. Pardon me if I get a little wonky here as I share screen. Let's see if it'll work. Okay, let me just make us a
Yeah,
little
that's
smaller
fine.
so that I can see it on my screen. And sorry, guys. There we go. That should work. All right. So,
If you hear some background sound, I have children playing in the house, so it's like Leo theme.
how Leo, that is perfect. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. So here we go. We've got our sun and moon at 23 degrees, 17 minutes of Leo, conjunct Venus, who's at 18 degrees of Leo, that we're going to dive into, and also making a nice little T square to pretty tight one to Uranus that's at 23 of Taurus. And then there is a sextile and a trine to the nodal axis. So let's just start unpacking that. What jumps to your mind? We'll kind of popcorn around and look at our lunation here first.
Now we're looking at five planets in fixed signs.
Mm,
And with fixed signs, I think about the stubbornness or the like, this is my way and I want to do it this way. With Uranus doing a square from Taurus. Also about the danger in being too rigid in your thoughts or with your intentions. It's really important to remember to that we need flexibility here. We need diplomacy. Both of these signs, they're quite stubborn in their own way, and they have strong wills. And yeah, that was come to mind. And also with Uranus, we usually get these different and unpredictable situations and tests on how we can adapt to a new situation and how we're going to solve it with this. So yeah, it's quite and back to the Sabian symbol about the balance. Here is some aspect that we maybe need to find balance with.
yeah. Yeah, and I agree with everything you're saying there about that fixed energy. And I would add to that also resistance is something I find very prevalent with the fixed signs. And often the resistance is like we don't even realize we're resisting. We're so focused. You know, we've got like the horse that has the blinders on, and we're so focused on this is the path I'm going that we don't even realize we're resisting seeing other opportunities, other scenarios, other ways. And you know, it's I'm always amazed when the fixed energy kind of comes forward within my life that it's like, no, this is the way forward. This is the path I need to take. And others will offer help. And no, that's not going to work because so often it's like that resistance can stop us from seeing where we need to make adjustments or where we need to be a little more, as you said, flexible. And I think with Uranus, you know, that often it's the sudden, unexpected, chaotic kind of energy, the snafus, the things that are breaking down, the things that are not working, the things we did not see that suddenly push forward. And it's like in the having to respond to the quote unquote crisis in front of us, it's forcing us to do what we were resisting. Now, I have a friend who has been dealing with some medical issues. And not too long ago, there was a sudden, there was a plan. There was a plan, and the plan needed to be in place for very logistical reasons. And this has to happen first, and then this, and this has to happen next, and then this. But then suddenly everything erupted, and it was like, well, we need to see the doctor, and it needs to happen now. And it wound up resolving things, but in a slightly perhaps more direct route. But it wasn't the plan, And so I'm thinking of that as I'm hearing this vibe of fixity and sort of, this could, and we were just talking about Leo and play. And so I'm also thinking, like, if the plan is I must go have fun this month, which was actually my plan that got shot down. We're going to go have fun during August. It's vacation time. Well, that just wasn't part of the universe's divine plan. So being open and being flexible and allowing plans to kind of ebb and flow as they need to, so that we're responding and we're not in crisis. Because I think that's the thing about Uranus is it's going to come through one way or another. So I would much rather deal with, if I feel those tremors, responding to them than waiting until there's an earthquake erupting.
Yeah, and also with Leo, with the kind of proudness that's there also. And like, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna manage by myself mentality, maybe. It's good to remember also with the North Node in Aries, I want to do it my way, I want to do this by myself. To remember, you can ask for help.
Yes.
You can ask other people. I'm working with that myself. Like, I asked you for help also, Kimberly, with some things. To see that when can you manage everything and when is it wise to ask for help from co-workers or friends or
yeah. I mean, Leo is a sign that likes to give. That's not something that's talked about as much when we talk about Leo. We talk about the fire and the play and the creativity, but it's a very giving sign. It will give from its heart. It'll give you the shirt. This is a sign that wants to give you the shirt off its back. And sometimes we have to remember that we need to receive too. I think all the fire signs can struggle with that. Like, we need to be able to receive. And with that Uranus and Taurus too, this is saying that whatever the obstacle, the chaos, the challenges are that we're dealing with, wherever life is not going, quote unquote, according to plan, that perhaps this is so we can uncover some hidden resources, because Taurus is all about resources. And I feel like one of the things that keeps happening over and over since Uranus went into Taurus back in, what was that, 2018, is that we're constantly discovering or rediscovering new talents that we have that maybe weren't so apparent or weren't in the line of sight, that we weren't focused on. And so this is also saying to me that whatever challenges are happening around this lunation, or for the 2 weeks following this lunation, it could be about helping us to see, to shine some light on, there's some talent, there's some resource, there's something there that needs to come forward, needs to be utilized, needs to be incorporated into our bigger plan. Yeah. And then, of course, there's Venus. We can't forget that, right? So she's I love this. So Venus is, you guys may remember, is in the middle of her retrograde through Leo. She went retrograde back in July. I think it was like around the 22nd. And she's going to be retrograding through Leo until Labor Day weekend. Sorry, here in the States, it's Labor Day weekend. Overseas, I know that's not your holiday. So September 3rd, she'll go direct. So we're looking at from 12 degrees Leo to 28 degrees Leo has been her journey. And on the week of the 13th, so just before, isn't that when she's going to go Cassimi?
Yeah, it's right now.
Yeah, it's right now while we're recording.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So she's past Cassimi when this is gonna go live. So she has done the Cassimi journey. I'm sorry, I had to just plug in a lead. Somebody take out my computer lead. So yeah,
yeah, so let's talk
yeah,
about that a bit.
yeah. Before like Venus and Mercury, they start off the retrograde periods like evening stars, and when they pass the sun, then they do the transformation into the morning star, and this evening morning star can maybe tell something about the slight difference in the appearance of the energy. It goes back to the brothers of Prometheus and Epimetheus. One was the one that was more spontaneous, impulsive, and the other one was the one that uh, more modest, and maybe one that was internalizing things before he was acting. So this is a bit when they start off as evening stars. We're maybe doing a more internal journey with the planet, thinking about what themes are important, what kind of solutions I want to do. And then after it has passed the sun, then it's maybe easier to bring that into light and forward. So, or we might find maybe some solution on those issues we have been working with internally. Um, that really old, I mean, maybe you know more about it, but these Aztecs and Maya people, they thought it was with Venus that it was actually like changing also the sex, that she was like going from male to female again, or
Yeah.
how was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a big transformation. They also knew about this so long, many thousand years ago, that it's going to be a different, she's like a different star when she has passed the sun and she's visible.
Yeah. It's really interesting to look up and see if you have a morning or an evening star Venus in your birth chart because the energy is so different, right? And it's just another way to delineate, to interpret what's going on. Um, the morning stars from I think it's from the Mesopotamian culture, if I remember right. The morning
Mhm.
star was viewed as much more warlike. It's much more. It's the Amazonian, the maiden, the let's get out there. She's just been reborn, right? So let's get out there, let's get going, let's take action, and then she does her journey as a morning star. And when she gets on the other side of the sun from us, again, she is conjunct the sun, but we can't see her. She's then reborn as that evening star, which is more of the Venus we think about as um, peace, relationship oriented, more kind of come into her own. And a lot of times they say, well, the morning star is the warrior, and the evening star is like the queen, the one that has the power, that's more confident. It's interesting. It really is. There was a great, amazing workshop I attended a few years back. Was one of the AA conferences over there in England, and I cannot remember the woman's name now. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I think she was one of Bernadette Brady's like cohorts, and she did one about the Babylonian Venus, and it was all about how in that culture, Venus was the only female planet. The moon was male, right? So it was the only female-based planet, and the planets were the gods to them. They were deities. So the only one, and every planet, every god had to go to Venus to get their weapons. So you were ineffective if you didn't have a relationship with Venus. So therefore, aspects to Venus were really important because if a planet didn't have an aspect to Venus, well, then it might be difficult to kind of get that energy going, which is so interesting because we're so sun based nowadays, right? Everything's about the relationship with the sun. So I don't know.
Mhm.
It's like you can go down rabbit holes with Venus.
Mhm.
Ariel Gutman has a great series of books on the Venus point star because the retrograde every 8 years, the retrograde will repeat in the sign that it was in before, moving just like 2 degrees along that zodiac. And so you can see themes. In fact, Chris Brennan's astrology podcast. Sorry, I'm just throwing out things, but I've been going down this Venus retrograde
Mhm.
rabbit hole right now. And there's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of great videos on the podcast talking about the cycles. And he's been on a kick about Barbie And it's amazing because if you look at like when Barbie was released, it was part of the Venus Leo cycle. And now we've got the Barbie movie, which is this huge hit, and and everything, the timing there. So it's really interesting. And of course, if you follow those 8-year cycles, those signs that keep repeating, it creates the five-pointed star in the sky, the pentagram, the symbol of Venus. So, I mean, there's just at some point when we're doing more podcasts, not just the transits every 2 months, but more, we'll have to do a special episode on like going down the rabbit hole of Venus because there's so much there.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes the evening and morning stars only associated with retrograde Venus or with retrograde Mercury, but everybody can check that in your chart if you have a morning or evening star. It doesn't need to be a retrograde to be accurate. So
Yeah. And the fact that I think this might be a good time to do some myth busting. We were talking before that we started recording about all the things that people say, all the quote unquote warnings that you see, especially on social media, about Mercury's retrograde, Venus is retrograde. So what are some of the things we are told pop culture says we should not do when Venus is retrograde?
yeah.
Right? You shouldn't
Yeah, I
start a
mean,
relationship.
mhm.
Don't cut your hair. But actually, you and I were saying, I mean, I think it's a great time. It's like this is a time, to me, Venus retrograde, especially in Leo, this is a great time to experiment. You
Yeah.
know, thinking about retrograde working for us instead of as something against us. It is a time to revisit. Retrogrades are about reviewing, revisiting. So when Venus is retrograde, especially in Leo, I think it's a great time to, revisit, like, how do I want my hair to be? How do I want my wardrobe? Who do I want to be in relationship with? All those things that are Venus ruled in our lives. What do I desire? What do I want? We don't necessarily have to take immediate action, but it's a good time to start thinking about and maybe do something as an experiment. I don't know that I would cut my hair from like if it was below my waist to a, crop, but I think I might say, let's try something different and see if I like it. If I don't like it, I can change it later. But getting into that zone of going back to that Sabian symbol, let's not worry about how it looks. Let's not worry if it's going to be tidy or not. Let's just go for it and see how it feels.
Yeah, and I like that experimental mode with this to also have like a space for error. It's a trial error. We don't have to expect that now I'm going to dye my hair in a totally different color and I'm going to like it. It might not happen, but I'm going into the experiment with I want to try something different. But also with the retrograde, it might be if you have too high expectations on it, it might be also something that's doesn't work out like you want, but you're more in that you're more prepared if you're in that experimental mode.
Yeah. And
Mm.
experimenting allows us to figure out what we really do want. Sometimes it's appreciating what we had.
Mhm.
With the hair analogy, right? During the Venus pre-shadow, I decided to go and get my hair cut from, I was tired of the haircut. I'd had it since COVID, time for something different. Went and got a shag, hated it.
Mm.
Like within 3 days, hated it, growing it out into a new bob again. But it made me appreciate that, instead of looking at what I had as I'm bored with it, it really made me appreciate what I had. And I've been trying to adopt this experimenting mode during the whole pre-shadow. And as we went into the retrograde, this idea of, so what do I want to play with? What do I want to experiment? What do I think I desire? Let's find out if I really do want it. And not have, as you said, high expectations or make it be, it must be the new normal. But let's just, it's summer. Let's play. Let's see what
Yeah.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah, and the same with relationships. Like when people maybe you feel that something in the relationship isn't working, maybe it's good time to go through what do I like, what do I want in a relationship, how can I change that, or what do I appreciate, and what are the things that I'm not. Instead of maybe I'm finding a new person and this is the new and then just leave. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so different approach to the retrograde, but it's good to know this, like with astrology, when we have a great tool to know things and themes, some kind of theme. when they're approaching, we are so privileged because we can experiment and focus on it in a different way, and also observe it in a different way.
Yeah. And if things are not working in those Venus ruled areas of life right now, if there are challenges, if there is something, as you mentioned, we're just coming out of that Kazemi. So the Kazemi is literally, she's moving in front of the sun. I need to go onto NASA's site and see if they have the telescope images. I love watching her just pass in front of there. But that's like that moment of download, of pure genius, of solar light infusing that planetary energy for us. So maybe if things aren't working, it's because something we really desire, that we really want, that we are craving, isn't happening. If there's problems with a relationship, well, what do I desire? What fun is missing from this relationship? Or what is that Leo energy that's not happening here? Where do we need to, where do we need to add a little more spark? And maybe it's what I desire in my life. It's if I'm working 80 hours a week, I may not have a lot of energy for my partner, or whatever's going on in that area of the chart where your Leo lives. So thinking about what do we desire, and am I getting those desires met? Right. And am I expecting other people? I think this is a big thing when Leo's retrograde. It is so easy to know, well, this is what I desire and I need to get it. But Venus tells us what we desire. Mars is the one that says this is how we're going to go get it. And that
Yeah.
relationship, either works or doesn't work depending on your aspects and your configuration. But if what I desire is fun, but I'm a workaholic, I might project that responsibility onto my partner. Maybe in my mind, it's my partner's job to bring me
Mhm.
fun. And right now they're not. They're being serious. And so I'm angry. Well, it might not be them, right? So the what is happening, I think, in terms of, since Venus is all about relationships, who we project onto and what we are projecting onto them instead of owning it as our own self. I think that comes to light during the Kazemi time period so sharply. It's like if you take the time to really sit with that, it can just it's easy to see. It's not hidden. It's like that part of our shadow that's not so hidden. Somebody just put a flashlight on it, and we can now see what I need to take personal ownership around and what I desire, and I need to bring this into my world. And it can also be, what's going on with our inner child and any healing or wounding there that we need to play. I think we need to have some fun. And that has been interesting to me, that the last 6 work meetings I've had with different groups I'm involved in, at every meeting, somebody else brought up, we're working too hard. We need a retreat. We need some downtime. We need a social. We need to connect. It's been like years of just work. And I think a lot of that's because we do stuff online. We kind of get into that work mode. There isn't that, standing around the coffee pot as we wait for the coffee pre-meeting, kind of getting to talk. And I feel like this energy of this lunation is really bringing this into focus for so many people, that we need to remember to enjoy the sweetness of life. And Venus is certainly about, what is it that is sweet?
Yeah, it's great. That's some really great insight with this period, absolutely. And maybe we can work a bit more on that when we have our next one, Mercury, that's gonna be retrograding. So we're gonna get a double retrograde with the inner planets, the planets between the sun and the earth, both at the same time. And yeah, so Mercury is approaching retrograde
Oh yeah.
in
It's going
and
to
it's
retrograde from I think it's 8 degrees. Let me double check
mhm,
myself. I don't trust my memory banks here. I have not had enough coffee this morning. Um, yeah, it goes direct the middle of September at 8 degrees, and it starts its retrograde on the 23rd, it looks like, of August.
yeah.
Yep, at 21 degrees. So 8 to 21 degrees of Virgo.
Hmm. It's going to be like station from 20th to 20th of August. So the stationary time might be good to check also a bit what's the type of energy and situations that you feel with that. And when we talk about retrogrades, we talk about that there might be some difference in the energy when a planet goes retrograde. And of course, we can never know how this is going to play out for anyone, because we don't know where these planets are in a person's natal chart. And you need to examine your own natal chart to see more in detail where you got this retrograding right now and how you react with Mercury issues and so on. So everything, you need to always have your own natal chart to know more about. This is just a generalization on the themes that will be maybe highlighted. So yeah, but we need to take a look at the details then, I guess, because we're in Virgo.
Yeah,
Need to get practical.
need to get practical. I have to say, I have a lot of planets in Virgo, and I have Gemini rising. So Mercury retrogrades tend to be a big thing in my life. I feel them strongly, but I like, of all the retrogrades, I find I'm the most productive, to use a Virgo term, during the Mercury in Virgo retrogrades. It's like this is to me, Mercury retrograde in Gemini or Pisces are kind of the classic everything goes wrong, everything breaks, computers, cars, all those Mercury ruled things. And I'm not saying that, having good backups isn't important during any Mercury retrograde or any of that, but this is like the one of, let's go clean the desk. Let's clean out the closet. Let's get organized. Let's pull out the day planners. Let's, come up with a better system. Let's review the systems in our life and which ones are working, great. But the ones that aren't working, let's go back and think about how we can make it work better. And so if you are struggling, I think, with any kind of, especially since Mercury has been kind of coming up and kissing Mars, right? Because of the retrograde, it slowed down, and it stationed. So we didn't have that exact conjunction, but it just kind of was following in the shadows of Mars. And I feel like this is saying it's hard to get our ideas moving. There's that idea of we're ready to take action. We're ready to do, very Mars. We're ready to be productive, but for some reason, there's a delay or a lag or a disconnect between what's going on in our head and what's happening out in the world. I think that's this particular transit, and I feel like this might be a really good time to make time to go back and review what works and what isn't working. Don't worry about it should work, right? That's so typical Virgo is, but it should. Doesn't matter if it should in theory. If it's not working for you, using organization as a very typical kind of stereotypical example for Mercury and Virgo, maybe you're a visual person and you need boxes on the wall. Maybe you're a linear person, you need pen and paper. Maybe, you are a digital person and you need the digital app, but like, let's not worry about going back. We started off talking about all the fixed signs and the resistance. So here's an opportunity to be mutable. We're in Virgo, we're immutable, we're flexible. Let's not worry about what should work. Let's not be resistive to something new. Let's go back and think about what did not work and how do I create systems that support me so we can take action in the months ahead after Mercury has gone direct.
Yeah, and here we have an opportunity with Uranus making a trine to Mercury.
Yeah, Mercury and Mars, both. Yeah, because Mercury's
So,
I don't know if we said, but Mercury's at 19 of Virgo for those who are listening, and Mars is at 22 of Virgo at the moment.
And Uranus is 23 in Taurus. So we have a support from Uranus, from being flexible and finding new solutions, and also stability there. So maybe it's a good energy to change things.
Yeah, change it up, do it different, see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But generally, we have a lot of planets that are going to be retrograding, and the rhythm with those. I mean, I kind of think that when there are many retrograding planets, it's like everything slows down. It's like harder to get ahead. You need to think things through 3 times before you're getting them like to happen. It's more like this kind of energy.
Yeah.
Maybe internal work with things, but frustration if you're trying to push it too much.
Yeah. I agree. And we've got 6 planets that are retrograde. Only 8 of the planets can go retrograde because the sun, the moon never do, right? So
Mm-hmm.
6 out of 8, that's a lot. That is a
Yeah.
lot. So it definitely feels like it is almost I'm ready to get going, but wait, wait. Let's
Mm-hmm.
let's think about this first. Let's, review. I'm ready for that new relationship, but wait, do you really know what you want out of a relationship? I'm really ready to start taking action and being aggressive and getting out there and launching things in the world, but wait, have you thought it through? Do you have a plan? I'm ready to go forward, but wait, Saturn and Pisces is asking have you taken the time to do your visioning before you took, pen to paper and did the plan? So there's just this whole, like, as they say, hurry up and wait kind of vibe in the chart this particular month.
Yeah.
Personally, though, if I had a choice between a chart that has an event chart that has a lot of retrograde planets or an event chart where they're all direct, I'm a person who's more comfortable with all the retrograde. Let's think about things. Let's work things through. Let's revisit. Let's review. Let's process and get ready for we're the thoroughbred out of the gate next month when everything starts to go direct. When everything's direct, it's like you get pulled like Gumby. Every planet is pushing and pulling us to take action, and it's almost too much. I can't do it all. So those rare times when everything is direct at once, those I find really actually much more challenging. So for those who are feeling a little overwhelmed because everything's retrograde, it is again going back to that idea of let's be a bit of a myth buster. Retrogrades get a bad rap. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of that is social media because we can talk about, I mean, everybody, even people who do not do astrology, know about Mercury retrograde. They've at least heard the term. It's much more popular, but these are not bad times. They are retrogrades, right? They're natural cycle of life, and it's the time of our lives when we're supposed to stop and review. Let's
Mm.
go back. And also, let's go back and do over. I think retrogrades are great for a do over. A
Yeah.
relationship failed, and maybe I want to reconnect or I want to end it on a better note. There's a reason that during Venus retrograde, a lot of old people from our past pop up and reconnect. It's a chance to do it over, either go forward with it or bring proper closure to it. Right. So this is a opportunity to think about not just relationships with Venus, but activities with Mercury, the actions with Mars, our timing, our sense of time and where we're giving time. Do we have work-life balance with Saturn? And if not, what do we need? Like this is a perfect opportunity to really think about if I could do XYZ over, how would it be? And now's the time to start thinking about that, I feel.
Yeah, and I think we got support also, as you mentioned earlier, about the sun and moon making a trine and sextile to the nodes. These kind of aspects can also tell about that we have like the inner knowledge to do this, to redo it, maybe some kind of gifts that we have got already with us that we can use to understand how we should do this in another way, maybe this time. And also notice that we don't have a lot of air in this chart, and the element that's kind of missing, except the south node, then the element is maybe a good key to how we can solve something. So communication is also interaction, yeah, balancing, harmonizing.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking about the South Node, the North and South Node are making a trine and a sextile, respectively, to the luminaries to this new moon. So we've got the South Node at 26 Libra, the North Node at 26 Aries. We've just recently, as we've talked about before, we've just stepped into this, right? We just had the nodal axis shift into the new pair of signs. And so we're now getting used to this. What do Aries, what do I want? What do I need to be pursuing in my life path? What is it I'm comfortable? Where do I have strengths and gifts? And maybe where do I get caught up in my comfort zone with that South Node? So who are the people I want in my life? How do I want them in my life? Where do I need to be brave and bold and step out alone? These are things a lot of us are just beginning to look at during the next 18-month journey. So that's something that's really supported, I think, by some of the what is not working right now is making us maybe review these questions.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be a complete episode if we didn't also talk about Jupiter. Since we're talking
Yeah.
about everything that's either is or going retrograde, we're going to have a Jupiter retrograde before all is said and done. And that actually doesn't begin until next month in September, at September 4th. It'll be at 15 degrees of Taurus that it goes retrograde. But we're practically almost there. It's almost stationary. It's at 14 degrees 58 minutes. So,
Mm-hmm.
within just a few days, we will be at that stationary point, that pre-shadow, whatever you want to call it. So we're starting to get into the warm up and feel this energy of this oncoming retrograde. And maybe we should close out by talking a bit about Jupiter retrograde in Taurus.
Yeah, so this Jupiter, I looking at Jupiter and Venus, because this Jupiter square Venus, I call it the luxury aspect. It's like I want this. I can point out what's expensive and I want it. And I think about the status and Leo and that you want to have something that's maybe over your budget, or you just want to have that luxury vacation that costs too much. I mean, or you might have opportunities that you need to really also look at it from a Taurian perspective. Maybe a bit dull for Leo, but still realistic. Like, can I manage this? Not taking things too far, too big. I think that with Jupiter in Taurus, it's a good place to ground that Jupiter, those visions and those plans, and reality check them.
Yeah.
So that's maybe something we need to do when it's starting to retrograde. These plans I have now, are they really realistic? Is this something that is there something here that I need to adjust
Yeah,
to
I think
make it
it's
more?
it's so easy to overdo right now. The
Yeah.
Venus retrograde ends, and the next day, I think it is, the Jupiter retrograde begins. And there are the two planets that want to bring us opportunities and things. So I think there is a lot of, like, the environment is rife with opportunities, but if I'm only doing what I want to do, or I'm only doing it the way I've always done it, I'm going to
Mhm.
miss those opportunities. And it's also easy to get caught up with all the things I want. It's like I keep hearing that song, I know what I want and I want it now, like going through my head, like this urge of desire from Venus. And now here comes Jupiter saying, well, there's no limits. I want to say yes to everything.
Mhm.
And I think that when Jupiter's retrograde, it's real easy to get into that. I'm going to say yes to life, but I say yes to everything without any discernment. And then we get into trouble. We get overextended because we forget that there are things we need, like sleep and rest and family and downtime. And um, it's easy to get lost in that. I think that one of the Achilles heels of Jupiter, because Jupiter gets often gets touted and lauded as like the great, wonderful, greater
Mhm.
benefic. And it is all those things for sure, but there's also this Achilles heel or shadow side of Jupiter, which is excessiveness, is extremely Jupiterian. And I feel that it becomes more easy for us to get lost in the excessiveness of Jupiter when she's retrograde. That idea of, I'm swimming I'm going to say yes to everything. Well, then we can't get everything done, can we?
Mhm.
And especially when it's in Taurus, I'm going to echo what you said about being cautious with some of the what we're doing financially. With Venus retrograde, it's easy to overspend. With Jupiter retrograde, it's easy to spend our money on things we think will generate revenue, and then later they don't. So, if we're thinking of launching a new startup campaign or something, this might be a good time to revisit and refresh that plan and that board and get it ready to launch once we've had time to sit with it or time for the planet to go direct.
Yeah, Jupiter can make things really grand, also your problems.
Mm,
Mm.
yeah. So there's a lot happening during the coming 2 weeks. We have inner planet retrogrades. We have the middle social planets retrograde. Then we have the outer transformative planets retrograde. So take some time to revisit and review whatever's happening in your world. Should we end on some tips?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With retrograde, you can just pick and choose which ones you want to work with. So,
yeah.
Yeah, some tips if I start with my tip, I want to go back to that Leo stellium we have here with the Venus, Moon, Sun, and I would like to examine the chart where you have Leo. Where is your playground in your chart, and how do you feel? How can you get that expression? Do you get it out in your life? Do you have like, how do you feel about that part of your chart, and is it working, or is there a place that you want to redo somehow, or you want to get a new, with the new moon you want to get something new to do with that area of your life?
And I'm going to tag on to that because my tip is also about the Leo part of our life. Venus retrograde is an 8-year cycle in terms of the sign that she is retrograde in. So if you think back to what was going on in your life in 2015, go back to 2007, those are the last times that you had a Venus retrograde in Leo. So what is that house in your natal chart? What is it about? Is there anything that maybe you hadn't thought about, any connections between the 3 years of 2007, 2015, and now? And maybe that can give us some understanding of what it is we're desiring to bring forward.
Great tip. It's really good to go back to those cycles. Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. So we'll be back in 2 weeks at the end of the month to talk about the next lunation on the 31st. So if you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe. It really helps our channel, and definitely hit that bell so you will be notified when we're back talking about the Lexonation. And, feel free to comment not only while you're watching this, but at any point in the next 2 weeks. Hit some comments. Let us know how these transits are affecting you, and we will try to do the same on our end as well. It's always interesting to see how the cycles are working in everybody's lives.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for joining us in this week's Astro Chat. We hope that you enjoyed the discussion and would love to hear about anything that resonated with you. Keep the conversation going by posting shareable content on our Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube pages. You can also email us at astrochatpodcast@gmail.com. AstroChat is uploaded every 2 weeks on the Saturday before each new and full moon. Look for us on your favorite podcast platform as well as on YouTube. You can support AstroChat and receive exclusive content by donating on our Patreon page. We look forward to chatting with you all again at the next lunation of the moon.